Shalom, how's everyone doing? Today is day 40 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and we'll be learning Siman Seif Yod. Let's begin. Misha Espalal, somebody who davened, umatza achar kach sheyisham tzoa, and afterwards he found in the place he davened there was tzoa there. If that place there was reason to suspect shema yisham tzoa, maybe there was tzoa there, v'hu pashav lo badak, and he was negligent and he didn't check. Kevan de tefillah shemon esrei hi b'makom karban. Since the tefillah of Shemon Esrei comes in the place of korbanos, havalei zevach choshem toeva. We look at it like it's the karban of the wicked, which is an abomination. V'tzarach lachzor l'chasval Shemon Esrei, and he has to go and he has to repeat Shemon Esrei. V'chein kriyas shema shi midoraisa. The same thing applies to kriyas shema, which is deoraisa. Ve'ein bo chashash bracha levatala, and there's no reason to be concerned for a bracha levatala. Chozer v'korei. So he goes back, he repeats Shema. Ava below brachos, but he does not say the brachos. V'chein shar brachos shamar sham. Right, any bracha that he says in this place of tzoa, va'afilu berkas hamazon, even berkas hamazon, eino chozer mevarich, he does not go back and repeat. Ve'em eina makom roi le'estapik b'tzoa, if the place, there was no reason to be concerned that there was tzoa there, da'az lo pasha, because then he was not negligent, afilu b'di'eved yotze, afilu b'tfila yotze b'di'eved, even Shemona Esrei, which you usually do have to repeat, here since he was a negligent, he'd be Yotzei B'di'eved. V'im nimsu meraglayim. Let's say he finds meraglayim. Afilu hamakom roiles tapik. Even if the place there was reason to be concerned, Yotzei B'di'eved gam b'tfila, Yotzei B'di'eved also by Shemona Esrei. So, obviously until now we've been dealing with the halachas that one is not allowed to daven or say any davar shebekdusha in the presence of tzah. So the question the Kitzur now is dealing with. He's dealing with the question, okay, let's say you daven, let's say you did say Devar Shebekdusha in the presence of Tzoa, what is the halacha now? Okay, so the Gemara really talks about this. If you look in the Gemara, Brachos, Taf Chaf Beis and Beis, it says as follows: Hayim Espalal, somebody who davened, specifically he davened Shemona Esrei, Umatz Tzoa B'mkoma, and he found that after he davened, he found that there was Tzoa in that place. So Rabbah says, okay, Afa Pishachata Tfilas Tefila. Okay, you did an Avera, you davened in the presence of Tzoa, that's an Avera, but still, what you did. Your davening is a good davening. But Rava said back, can't be, because there's a pasuk that says, Zevach Hashem Toeva. Right? That there's an idea that sometimes somebody could bring a karban, and that guy's a rasha, and Hashem treats that karban as an abomination before him. And Hashem doesn't accept the karban. Right? We don't have karbanos these days, but we have Shemona Esrei. Shemona Esrei comes in the place of karbanos. So just like sometimes we have that a karban is not accepted by Hashem because it's an abomination, so too this guy Shemona Esrei is not accepted. So, because Rava says, this guy didn't avera, afa pisha espala, tfilaso toeva. Even though this guy davened, his tefillah is an abomination. Okay. So Tosfos points out a couple things here. The first thing Tosfos points out is, the Gemara is clearly saying, or at least according to Rava, which we happen to hold like, right? We hold like the opinion of Rava, that this guy's tefillah is an abomination. But, like Rava said, it's hol v'chata, since this guy didn't avera. What was this guy's avera? That he davened in the place of tzoa. But, as Tosfos points out, and as we pointed out previously, the halacha does not require somebody to check, every time he davens or any time he says Devar Shebekdusha if there's tzoa there. Halacha only requires him to check if there's a reason to be concerned that there might be tzoa there. Right? So Tosfos clearly says that, let's say a guy davens in a room where there's no reason to suspect there was tzoa there, then even if he davened and there was, this guy did not do an avera, his tefillah would actually not be an abomination. So he says this Gemara is clearly only talking about a case where he was posheya, he was negligent, he should have checked, there was reason to suspect there was soa there, and then he davened. Right, Tosfos clearly says that. Most of the Rishonim clearly say that. Okay, that's point number one Tosfos makes. The second point Tosfos makes is, okay, what does the Gemara say? The Gemara says that this guy's tefillah is a toeva. This guy's tefillah is an abomination. But it doesn't say what to do now. Right? Okay, this guy davened in the place of tzoa, his tefillah is an abomination. What does he do now? The Gemara never says. So Tosfos gives us a pshat, and he says, yeah, you know what? You know what happens? This is something called a mu'uvas lo yuchal leskon. There's something crooked that can't be fixed. Alright, this guy did a very bad thing. He davened in the place of tzoa. Alright, but what he did. You can't fix it now. There's nothing to do. Alright, an example we find that is that, let's say somebody, for whatever reason, he on purpose, he knows he's supposed to daven mincha, and he just goes through the whole day, purposely doesn't daven mincha. Okay, now it's nighttime. So, the Gemara says, Mu'uvas lo yuchal leskon. Something crooked can't be fixed. He missed mincha, you can never make that up again. Right? If he made a mistake and didn't daven, that's a different story, but if he negligently doesn't daven, he missed his chance. So too here, this guy was negligent, he should have looked to see if there was Sarah there, he didn't look, so he missed his chance. That's what Tosfos says. But then Tosfos quotes the Ri. And the Ri says, what does the Gemara mean when it says his tefillah is an abomination? It means, we look at it like he didn't daven at all, and he just goes and repeats. He goes and repeats Shemona Esrei. That's what the Ri says. So if you look at Igros Moshe explains the machlokes as follows. Right? He quotes the first sheet of Tosfos that, you messed up, you can't fix the situation, because Tosfos learns, this guy, he davened, and the Gemara considers it an abomination to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But, l'maisa, the guy still davened. No reason he should have to repeat his davening. There's no reason he should have to. He already davened. But the way Rav Moshe understands the Ri, Rav Moshe says that, what does the Gemara mean when it says his tefillah is an abomination? It means that Hashem did not accept his tefillos. And the Ri learns, if you have a tefillah and Hashem doesn't accept your tefillos, it's like you didn't daven at all. Right? So Tosfos learns, he agrees that Hashem did not accept the tefillah, so it's an abomination. But he still davened. But according to the Ri, the whole point of davening is that Hashem will accept your tefillos, and if we find a situation where Hashem didn't accept your tefillos, like in this situation with the Tueva, we look at it like you didn't daven at all, and you would have to go and repeat Shemona Esrei again. Okay, that's point number one about the Gemara. The second point is, this Gemara is only talking about Shemona Esrei. Right? This Gemara says, if you daven Shemona Esrei and you were Poshea and you didn't see if there was Soa there, and you davened, you have to go and repeat Shemona Esrei. It doesn't talk about anything else, right? Even though, as we've learned, there's an Isser to say any Devar Shemekdush in the presence of Soa. But the Gemara only talks about Shemona Esrei. So if you look in Shulchan Aruch, in Orach Chaim, Siman Kov Peiches, Shulchan Aruch says, if you look at Tosfos and the Rosh, in Maseches Eruvin, they're mistapik. They don't know. They don't know if there's just a Shemona Esrei halacha, or it's a everything halacha. Right? What are the two sides? First we'll say maybe it's only a Shemona Esrei halacha, which is seemingly what the Gemara implies, right? The Gemara implies that this guy, it's like bringing a carbon, it's like a Russia bringing a carbon, which is an abomination. Okay. What's like bringing a carbon? Shemona Esrei, right? Shemona Esrei is in the place of karbanos, but other brachos aren't in the place of karbanos. Kriya Shema isn't in the place of other karbanos. So maybe this is just a din by Shemona Esrei, there's halacha by Shemona Esrei, that you have to go and repeat Shemona Esrei, but it should not apply to any other bracha or to Kriya Shema. That's one way to look at it. Or we say no. Just like we find by Shemona Esrei, it's aser to say Shemona Esrei in the presence of Tzoah, therefore you have to repeat. So to this should apply to anything, to Kriya Shema, to any bracha you should go and you should repeat. So if you look at the Mishnah Berurah says, you have to see what Shulchan Aruch says in Hilchos Kriya Shema. Shulchan Aruch says, it's a davar pasha, that by Kriya Shema, that you would have to repeat Shema. Right? If somebody says Shema in the presence of Tzoah, and then he didn't know it at the time, he should have checked, and he didn't check, and he said Kriya Shema, he would actually have to go and repeat Kriya Shema. So the Mishnah Berurah proves from there, he says, yeah, that's because this is an all-around halacha. Just like we see by Shemona Esrei, you have to repeat, so too by Shema, so too by every bracha in the world. That's the sheet of the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah holds that any bracha, any Devar Shebekdusha you say in the presence of Tzoah, and you should have been more careful, then you would actually have to repeat, just like we find by Shemona Esrei. If you look at the Chai Adam says, not so fast. The Chai Adam says, we have the Shulchan Aruch who says it's a suffix if this applies to other things other than the Shemona Esrei or only Shemona Esrei. And then we see that the Shulchan Aruch passes by Kriya Shema that you would have to repeat Kriya Shema. But the Chai Adam says, I'll tell you why. Right? Kriya Shema, it doesn't hurt to just repeat it. Right? Let's say you say Shema, later you find out it was in the presence of Zohar. So what are we going to tell this guy to do? It doesn't hurt to repeat Kriya Shema. But Chai Adam says, you know what it does hurt? It hurts to say other brachos. Right? Because Shulchan Aruch himself said it's a doubt whether you have to repeat other brachos, and we have a general rule of suffix brachos lahakim. Right? So let's say you ate food, right? You made a mizonos, and then whatever food. Then you found out you made that bracha in the presence of Tzoah. Right? According to the Mishnah Berurah, the Mishnah Berurah says, no, you got to repeat the bracha. But the Chai Adam would come along and he would say, no, it's a suffix. We should say suffix brachos lahakim. If you're in doubt, you don't say it. Right? So that's shita number 2, and that also happens to be the shita of the Kitzur. Right? So we have the shita of the Mishnah Berurah, we have the shita of the Kitzur. We have the third shita, that's the shita of the Olas Tamid. Right, the Olas Tamid, he basically agrees with the Chai Adam. He says, no, Obviously, you have to repeat Shemona Esrei because the Gemara says to repeat Shemona Esrei. We also tell somebody to repeat Kriya Shema because it can't hurt to repeat Kriya Shema. He agrees with the Chayadam that, most brachos, right, since we have this general rule of Savik brachos hakel, we say you will not repeat other brachos. But he says there's one exception. What's that one exception? Birchas Hamazon. Right? Because Birchas Hamazon is a bracha that's a deoraisa. It's a bracha that's a deoraisa. So the last time it said, right, you would lose out if you wouldn't bench, right? You would lose out because we're dealing with a deoraisa here, and we don't want this guy to lose out on the deoraisa. Okay, shkoyach.